One of the things that most surprised Christina Acosta about motherhood was that it was lonely.
Something about the isolation of like being in the house, breastfeeding my first child, and not really being able to go out and about and do my thing that really helped me to realize like the loneliness of motherhood is real. I actually could kind of feel it in my heart and needing company and friendship. And I did find that a lot of my friends who didn't have babies yet, they were so supportive, but they didn't necessarily understand that motherhood comes with its own weight and its own responsibilities, and you can get pulled every other way. And I wasn't as available, and I needed some moms who understood that and can kind of walk us alongside me.
This is the How She Moms podcast with Whitney Archibald. I'm a mother of 5 on a mission to help moms connect with your kids, manage your homes, and create your own unique version of motherhood. I curate ideas from different moms so you can pick and choose what works for you and your family. I first met Christina Acosta at a conference. I entered this big ballroom, looked around for a friendly face to sit next to, and boy did I find one. We launched right into easy conversation, and it was clear that this woman had a talent for making friends. Like all talented people, Christina makes her talent look easy and natural because she's put in the work. Not only the work of developing her own friendship skills, but also building a nationwide community of women from a small group that started in her own living room. Today we're going to learn about how she built a community for Black moms of faith called Growing Up Gorgeous. But she's also going to teach us some really practical tips for building our own friendships, from analyzing and sometimes repairing past friendships to going deep and getting beyond surface relationships. I learned so much from our interview about just becoming a better friend and making friendship a priority that I can't wait to share it with you too. This episode is part of an ongoing series about friendship, including the last 2 episodes, how she spends time with friends and how she makes friends, Episode 97, how Devin and Alexa support each other and other moms, Episode 94, how she supports other moms, and Episode 93, how she dismantles the mommy wars. The reason I'm spending so much time on friendship is that it's more crucial than ever in our fragmented society. That whole "it takes a village" thing? It's true. And when the village isn't the default, we have to create it ourselves. Motherhood, caregiving, and running a household are meant to be done in community. We can't do it on our own, and why would we want to? Christina Acosta is a mom to 3 girls, ages 8, 6, and 4. She started Growing Up Gorgeous shortly after her second daughter was born. She's also a true philosopher, someone who thinks deeply about motherhood, friendship, spirituality, and community. So I started our conversation by asking her why she thinks community matters.
I think we are designed to be in community. And when I think about it, there's something about the ups and downs and valleys of life where a friend coming alongside of you and really helping to support you and helping to point you in the right direction. And sometimes just to like sit on your couch and cry with you, like it's needed, right? It was like we really need friends for the lower moments, but then we also need friends to celebrate with us and to kind of help us to reflect back on our lives. Like I think back on some friends who've been with me in multiple seasons and just how important it is to have somebody walking alongside of you. I always think about the story of when my oldest daughter, the first time she got sick, and really needing to have somebody to call to say like, oh my goodness, this little tiny baby has a fever, I'm really nervous, I'm really worried, and just needing to have someone there to be like, it's okay and this is what you're
Yeah.
going to do. And thankfully I have sisters, so my sisters kind of served that spot for me, but I recognized early on that everybody doesn't have that, and everybody doesn't have really supportive friends who'll come and visit. And it really got my mind thinking slowly that wait, there's something about community and there's something about a village that really makes a difference. There's also something about having a friend who'll be honest with you, which is really important when you really want to like be yourself. I think we wear a mask a lot of times at work or at stores or wherever we go. We really feel like we have to have some sort of persona that we present to folks. And your real friends, you don't have to do that. You could just be yourself. You could be honest. You could say what's really going on, and they're going to receive it. And they're also going to give back that same honesty to you. And that's what makes sisterhood like it's like a glue. It's the mask is off, and we can really see one another.
Yeah.
Um,
Great. So why do you think any of us, but specifically mothers, struggle to form friendships?
Yeah, I think some of it is proximity, right? So where you go and how you hang out becomes really different, right? Like you
Hmm.
may end up doing brunch and that sort of thing before you're a mother and like just enjoying having your own free time, and all of a sudden you find yourself at the park and at play dates and Chuck E. Cheese and all that kind of thing. So the actual kind of opportunities for you to really make real connections, they can kind of slim down, right? To like mom's group and really specific places. And then I think what happens is we don't really understand that as we get older, there are so many layers to us that we have to work through to really make strong friendships. And I think with motherhood, one of the masks that we can sometimes wear is like, we are on guard when we're out with our children with people, especially people we don't know, right? Like now,
Yeah.
not only am I maybe concerned with how you view me, but now I'm also concerned with how you view these little people and how you view me as a mother. And you can feel sometimes like you're always on display.
Yeah.
And so the walls go up because anytime that like I'm worried about what someone may think of me, I'm gonna put up my walls. And then motherhood has so many choices. So like, did you breastfeed? Did you check whatever, right? Like, do you
Yeah.
homeschool? Do you send your kids to traditional school? There's all these choices. And with it, there's always this little thing that we have to learn to fight back, this voice in the back of their heads that says like, this person is judging your choice, right? Or this person is looking at you some sort of way. And I really think it just creates all these barriers around real friendship, real relationship. And there's also a lot of baggage that comes with being an adult. So I think
Yeah.
all adults in general, even those who aren't mothers, they have a harder time. Like I look at my 4-year-old, everybody is her best friend,
Yeah.
right? Like she goes to
Yeah.
the playground. It's like, you love me and I love you until you take something from me. And
And
as
then
adults,
it's quick. That's a
years,
flash in
right?
the pan. Yeah.
Exactly. It's so quick. Um, but as adults, we have years of things that if we're not able to really work through and peel back, they will keep us from real friendships and real connection. I also think there's a lack of open spaces for moms as well, where they
Oh.
can come as they are. So that's why for me, creating a community was so important because I went to a lot of mother spaces that didn't have other women who looked like me and had the same experience that I had as a Black woman. And so that's another layer that may prevent people from feeling like they're welcome, from feeling like they can really find friends, and depends on where you live and what you have going on. And it makes a big difference.
Yes. So let's talk about this. At what point did you realize that there was this need to create something, and how did you have the confidence and courage to be like, I'm going to fill that need?
Yeah. So actually with my first daughter, I don't think I really realized the wider community need. I think I just was so,
Yeah.
concerned into kind of my own first mom thing. But with my second daughter, I vividly remember visiting multiple moms groups, and the conversations that were happening were not my concerns at the time.
Mm.
And it was a distance that was created immediately when, one, you walk into a room and you don't see anyone who looks like you. There's always that thought. And then on top of that, the conversations were really focused on things that just were not an issue for me at the time. And so I realized really quickly that something needed to be done, and there needed to be a space where I could talk about school choice in urban neighborhoods, or maternal mortality as a Black woman, or that my concerns and my terror about police brutality. There's just like the
Yeah.
list goes on and on and on. And I wanted there to be a place where the conversations about motherhood could include my issues. And I really heard from a lot of the people around me that they needed the same thing. And so it just kind of became like, hey, let's do something together. So I think the courage and the bravery really came from a calling, like feeling called to do something and to help. But then also the community around me was like, yeah, we're going to do this together. And that is how it's been for the past 6 years. It's been a team, a tribe that has just come together and made the community flow.
Awesome. So can you tell me about it? Like, starting just with the name of your organization, how did you start it, and what has it grown to become?
Yeah. So Growing Up Gorgeous Moms began in 2016 in my house. I had 2 kids at the time, and I invited over some women who I really respected and looked up to, and some friends as well, to just come together and have a meal and like, let's see what happens and have a good time. And over time, it really grew to people really wanting something that they could consistently come to. So
Mm.
we started having monthly meetups, and we started that monthly meetups turned into weekly meetups where we would walk in the mall together, and it was just comfortable and it was just such a good vibe. And over the years, what actually happened surprised me a little bit. But what happened was I started to get to know moms in our group and see the dynamics between different moms and see this baggage that I was talking about
Yeah.
earlier, where people were having a harder time really pushing past introductions or pushing past like surface relationships. And I realized that, like, if we're going to do this and this is going to be a real community, we're going to have to go deeper. And so we started meeting virtually and bringing in some of our faith beliefs and bringing in some harder conversations over time. And those virtual meetups is actually the place where some more deeper connections really happened and people were able to
Really?
let their guard down. Yeah, it was really cool. And I had some painful experiences where, I had to learn about my own junk and baggage that I bought into relationships and friendships. And thankfully, I met some women who walked with me through a really hard time personally, as well as through my baggage that I was bringing through friendship, and really taught me about vulnerability and friendship and connection in such a tangible way. And those are my girls. Like, it's just kind of how it went. And what has happened over time is it's just spiraled where, wait, your cousin in Atlanta, she wants to hop on the call, and your sister-in-law in Texas, like, okay, let's do it. And more women from all over have been
Really?
hopping on. Yeah, because we all desire support and we all desire love and a space where we can just be ourselves. It's in all of us. And so women who don't have it, they come virtually now. And so we still meet. We're back to meeting sporadically, like monthly here in New Jersey and Philadelphia area. But we have a virtual venue now, and we have our own private app. We've pulled ourselves away from the Facebook group, and we have our own app where we can talk, where we can discuss,
Oh,
where
that's
people can.
cool.
It is really cool. And like the sharing of the resources, right? So like I always think about my new moms. Like when you're a new mom, all you want to know is like, how do I get this baby to sleep and how do I get them to stop crying? And so we have those kind of resources, just the tangible stuff like available on the app. But the biggest thing to me is the conversations and the moms who can say in the midnight hour, like, I got a prayer request, I need some help. They can come to that app and just put that out there and get some feedback and get some support. And it's been really beautiful.
I love that you talked about that difficulty in digging deeper. And that's what I hear over and over again. What advice do you have to go from that surface level or acquaintance status, where you just smile and say hi at the carpool line or
Yeah.
whatever, to making that vulnerable step to the next level, even on a logistical level? Like how do you make that invitation?
I think logistically, it's like you have to kind of say, like, I'm going to put this on my calendar and I'm going to go. But I think the biggest barrier that I see for vulnerability and connection in moms is we are so busy and we are so always pouring out, always pouring
Yeah.
out. And so what ends up happening is we're like, we'll get to that. It goes on the like, eventually kind of list. And then we hear that community. I always say sisterhood is self-care, right? But when we hear that word self-care, that comes with its own, like, okay, I'm trying, like our own guilt that we may carry. And so I think it's just acknowledging that, like acknowledging it's really important to keep sisterhood as a priority and then chasing after it, like not allowing yourself to get defeated. If you say you're going to show up for this weekly play group, keep going, like keep going and keep showing up. And that know that you and your relationships are important enough to put that as a top priority, even with like lunches that need to be prepared and homework and all the things that need to be done. Your wellness is tied to having a supportive community that can love on you and that you can support. And I think folks just have, as moms, we have to give ourselves permission to go ahead and focus on that and
Yeah.
let that be part of our self-care plan, and know that I'm worth really investing in my relationships and I'm worth putting this as a priority and pushing past the uncomfortableness and the awkwardness.
Yeah. And I think far from giving our kids the message that they are less important, I think it teaches them the importance of making connections themselves if we model that for them, right?
That's right. And they're going to see us taking care of ourselves in whatever way we choose. And I think that that helps them to become adults who do the same thing, you
Right.
know?
Yeah. And that's what we want for that. We don't want them to become these self-effacing, we often think that that is what we should be for them, but it's not what we want for them. So it doesn't make any
Mhm.
sense.
Yep. Yep. And we also, I mean, we just feel like mom guilt is real. Like we feel like we have to carry the load. And like, if I don't do it, who's gonna do it? Right. Like that's a thing in the back of our minds. But knowing that we can shift our priorities and still do amazing things for our kids, like showing them how to be secure and comfortable in friendships and relationships. It's important.
And beautifully, it is one of the ways to lighten the load, because once we have that community, then we have support. Then that has lightened our load. So we think we're being selfish for seeking our own, but it uplifts everyone if we build a
Mhm.
community.
That's right. If we build it up, absolutely. And it's
That's
just
right.
part, I think, really honing in on us being able to affirm ourselves through it too, like really deciding I am worthy of relationships and I am desired as a good friend.
Yeah. What are some of the other obstacles that you think get in the way of friendship and make people feel lonely?
One thing I think that happens is how we actually feel about ourselves. And I think what I was starting to think about when I was mentioning the affirmations is that there's kind of a perspective sometimes where we'll enter into new spaces and we'll say to ourselves, I don't belong here, right? Like, or I don't fit in. And it's really important to squash that voice in the back of our heads that speak those like lies to us that you aren't welcome here or you're different or you're those sort of things. And I even think about that when I think about my journey for starting Growing Up Gorgeous. I'm like, I literally started it because I walked into a room and felt like I didn't belong. And there was a need there. There was a need as far as to have this specific space. But over the years, I've also had to go back to myself and say, why didn't you push through that? And that's like a kind of strange
Yeah.
dynamic because there's some truth there, but there's also a need to address and say, like, I am worthy of any space that I walk into, right? Like, I
Yes.
bring a valuable piece to whatever circle that I'm in. And I think it's been cool because it's like, okay, let's hold hands together as Black Christian women. And also, like, now let's reach back and bring in some other women as well and realize that, like, it is the collective, it is all of us, it is all that joy, all those struggles together that really keeps us going as a people, that really helps us to, as we share stories, as we talk about our experiences, it helps us to connect and to learn and to love. So I would say one big barrier is just going into the space and feeling that immediate, like, this is not, I don't fit in, they don't like me, those kind of thoughts that may not be backed up yet by actual evidence or actual truth.
Yeah. And another thing I hear frequently is, oh, they already have all the friends they need.
Yeah,
They've found their group and they don't need anybody else.
yeah,
And that is rarely true. We
yeah.
I don't think it's ever true, actually. You can never have
Sure.
too many or enough friends. There's always room for more connections.
Absolutely. And I think even that reminds me something that happens. I think it's a 2022 problem. We look at social media and we'll see what other people are doing with other people
Mm.
and compare and be like, well, she's making time for this person. She's making time for that person. She doesn't necessarily have time for me. And I think it's just as dangerous as like looking at someone's relationship on social media. Like it kind of has a twinge of, just let me be real, like it's jealousy that we feel.
Yeah.
And I think we have to ask ourselves, what is the track record of this person? How often have you reached out? Can you reach out more? And not put a judgment stamp on, like, well, I've seen you on social and you don't want to be with me because you're being with all these other people. I think it's dangerous.
Well, that's why I love that you just made the move and started, because first of all, that's a little scary, but if we're always waiting for somebody else to make the move, we can be waiting a really long time. And
Absolutely.
even like recently we had an extra concert ticket and I was trying to find somebody to go with us. It's a weeknight. It's like a pretty hard ask actually, because it's,
Uh-huh.
but I just looked at it as like, you know what? It's actually almost better the more people I ask, because then more people know that I wanted to spend time with them. Whether they can come or not, getting a
Yeah,
rejection doesn't have to be a negative thing. It
that's right.
it can be a first step. Even if people say, "Oh no, that doesn't work for me right now," they know you cared enough to reach out, and
Mhm.
that's a stepping stone for the future.
Yeah. And how brave of you, like to just push through those feelings, because that is hard. And the thought of rejection is it'll keep us from doing things. So fighting through that fear is really important. That's really cool that you did that anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and well, and it ends up like now I have all these people that were like, "Ask us next."
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
you just
And I think it's important too, like if folks are into journaling and kind of peeling back their past, consider doing like a friendship journey kind of assessment and see
ooh.
like, okay, what did you struggle with in college or in high school? And like, do any of those trends and things still show up? Because I think sometimes I just see a lot of times with the moms that I work with that they have they don't realize that this is the pattern of what you're doing in a lot of groups and a lot of times when you're approaching situations. Um, and I think just, discovering it, like writing it down and seeing like, do I have a tendency to do blank, can really help you the next time you're able to meet a new friend, right? And be connected with a new person, because you know in the back of your mind that like, you know what, I have a tendency to do this, and it helps you to correct it.
That has never occurred to me. I love that idea. Like I'm a journaler, I'm a writer. I like
Yeah.
to write, but I've never thought of specifically journaling my friendships, even for a cool record of
Yeah.
relationships and friendships, but also a path of discovery. What a cool idea. I love that suggestion.
Yeah, I think I mean, it can be painful, right? Like
Yeah.
it can be heavy, depending on what your experience has been. But I've done it and it really has helped me. And I've seen other women be able to do that. And then we can talk through it. Like, this is a pattern. This is something that we're seeing frequently,
Yeah.
in places where we may need to forgive. So I was just talking to a sister we both went on like a forgiveness tour where we were
Oh.
like, please forgive me. And also, like, I need to forgive you, to people that we hadn't talked to in years.
Whoa, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Like, and some people will be like, who has time for that? Right. Like, that's like really a lot, but it's freeing. And you never really know, when we're up and we're like really concerned with like, why aren't my new friendships clicking? Why isn't this working? You never know. You may be still carrying some unforgiveness or some baggage from the past that you got to work through. And those conversations are hard. I had to call an old college friend who was like, girl, I'm not even thinking about you anymore. But she appreciated the phone call, and like we were able to talk through some of the drama, because there can be drama in relationships for sure.
Is that something you came up with? I've never heard of a forgiveness tour. Did
I literally just coined the term in a joke, like as I was talking to my friend, and we were like, oh yeah, we both had to do this. But it's something that I think I want to explore more and help other women really work through for sure.
Wow. What a like an open and I mean, I keep saying the word vulnerable, but that's vulnerable. That's vulnerability right there, man.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely wasn't something that I wanted to do. Like, I wasn't excited about it, to be honest, and I
But how
hesitated and
healing.
procrastinated, but very healing. Yeah,
Wow.
aren't
For
all the things that we really need kind of tough, and hard to do and get through? So,
yeah. Oh, that's so cool. So I love that you mentioned earlier, like branching out and looking for friendships where outside your comfort zone and outside your immediate community. Because I think there's a real need for both. I think you need to find people that are going through what you're going through, especially, well, just early motherhood is so tumultuous, for lack of a better word. I mean,
that's
there's just so many ups and downs, both hormonally and experientially, and everything's so new. Like having other people that are going through it is helpful because you don't want to just hear advice. You want commiseration as well,
right.
like
That
you
is
don't
right.
just want older moms who've been through it to tell you to treasure it.
Right, right. You're like, I know.
But But on the other hand, it often gives you so much perspective to make friends outside that situation and make friends of different generations, different ages, different life experiences, different demographics, all of that. It sounds like you are kind of a broad community of all different stages within
Yeah.
motherhood. How has that brought a new dimension as you've grown?
So funny, like having people on the call that are like definitely like holding babies and then, talking to teenagers at the same time. Like it is
Yeah.
intergenerational. And I think the beautiful thing about this community is that the vibe of the folks who stick to the community are non-judgmental and like understanding. So it becomes like every once in a while someone will say like, "Oh yeah, I remember what that was like." But it's kind of just like they don't dive into like, and you better treasure it and like don't like
Yeah.
people know. They just know like we don't just be there for one another.
Yeah.
And we talk a lot. This is why for me, the faith part was really important because we talk a lot about mercy and grace. It's just kind of a tenet of the Christian faith. And so, what ends up happening is when we're in community and we're talking about everyday stuff, right? Like issues with your husband or like um, how messy your house is, like everyday stuff. The mercy and the grace that we're talking about in Bible study or in book club bleeds over, and it's
Yeah.
kind of this thing of like, yeah, like here's some resources, here's this app you can use to help organize your cleaning schedule. Christina, that's me, that's what I need. Here it is for you. But there's really no stamp on it. And then there's also been when we are offended, right? Because that's happened over the years. Someone has said something that rubs someone the wrong way. It's assuming the best of one another and like really having an understanding of if we are in this space together, right? Like if I invite you in my home and we're here, let's be clear on like, we're here to support and to understand one another. And having those conversations with friends can be a little awkward, but that open communication can really help with saying like, hey, listen, you need a sitter, I need a sitter, like let's work this out together and then let's talk about like what our friendship could look like and how we can support one another and what we need. And I think we don't talk enough about that and how that can look, but it helps to bring people together who might not necessarily think the same, who might not, no one thinks the same, but who might not have the same like demographics, like
Yeah.
who might be
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
Um, you have to talk through those things sometimes, for sure.
Well, and I love that you mentioned um assuming the best of each other. If we just always assume that people's intentions are good,
Yeah,
whatever the outcomes, we all make mistakes.
yeah,
Even driving on the road, if somebody makes a mistake, you can assume it's a mistake and not an intentional jerk move, or something
yes.
like that. It's a
Yep,
much better way to
yep,
go through life if you
yep,
just assume people are
yep.
well-meaning and kind.
And knowing ourselves, right? Because there's days when someone can like cut me off and I'm like, I don't really care, right? Like, because I'm in a better place today and that's
Yeah.
fine. But then there's days when like I do care and I am like on edge and I just, it takes me to the next edge. I think it's important that we slow down, even if it's like 5 minutes in your car before you get out, 5 minutes in the shower, that we are really peeling our brains. Going through our own thoughts, which is why I love journaling and writing, because it helps us to see, like, well, where are you and how are you feeling? Because that's going to make a difference when you interact with these people. Yeah. And I think that's so important. We call them sandpaper souls. It's basically like there's certain personalities that, like, it's like sandpaper. Like, we just don't get along. I don't know what it is. Like, but I want to be one of your people because we're in the same space or we work together or whatever it is. And I think it's important to know, where are you when you're approaching your sandpaper friend? Like, because if we're both in a bad place, it's not gonna go well. That's when conflicts. And like if I'm in a really hard place, maybe we don't need to meet up right now because I'm not in a good space. And I know that there's certain friends that I have that are really good for helping me when I'm on 10, that are really good for having those hard conversations.
Yeah.
And then there's some other friends that's not what our friendship is based on. And that's okay. My mama used to say this: you have two or three really, really good friends that are there for you in those hard moments. cherish those, but you can't expect that from everybody, that you have interactions with.
Yeah, it's almost, I mean, this might be crass, but thinking of it as a toolbox, like
Right. Right.
you've got this toolbox of friends and everyone has their function
That's right.
and you know who to call for specific things. And
Yes.
what a great resource to just have a really deep toolbox of
That's
friends.
right. Yep, that's right. And knowing and then being clear. That's the biggest lesson that I've learned because I have harmed some relationships by not being like really clear with like, hey, this season right now, I'm really busy. And so we might not talk all the time. That's okay. I still love you. I care for you. Like being clear on that. And it's not saying like, hey, you're my tool just for when I want
Right.
to have fun. Like,
Yeah, and that's why I was like, this isn't quite the right analogy because you
but
don't
it's
want to
good though.
sound like we're not using our friends. We're not taking advantage of them because we're also useful to that, like
Yes. Yeah.
it's a partnership. It goes both ways that we can figure out how we can best be there for them. So
That's right. Yeah, and I like it. I just think it's so practical to think of it that way and to help us to understand because then we're not getting really defeated, feeling like a certain person should be serving this certain purpose that like that's not why they're in your lives. And that's
yeah,
okay.
beautiful. Maybe a bouquet is a better
There you
better
go. Oh,
analogy.
I like that.
Or sometimes you need a sunflower
That's
and
right.
sometimes you need a pansy. I don't know.
I like
Sometimes
it.
you need like some gentle
That's
pansy. I
right.
don't.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm stretching analogies too
Depends.
far.
I mean, I kind of like it. Different
Yeah.
occasions calls for different types of flowers. And the one thing that I just was thinking that I wanted to bring up when we're thinking about assuming the best, like really paying attention to the all statements that we make in our head.
Oh.
So like, I can't be friends with women because all women think this way, or I can't be friends with
Mm.
men because all men think this way. I think that that's one of the barriers that I forgot to mention that really can hold us back. And that's been one of the biggest lessons learned, I think, from our organization is just really thinking about taking away the all because it's a barrier and it keeps you from really connecting. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that because I mean, it's a good way to identify the stereotypes we may not have acknowledged
Right.
that we have. But if we are ever saying that, well, they're all like that. That's a good earmark to look for. If you ever say that, catch yourself and be like, wait a minute, that's probably not true.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
One thing I meant to follow up on is you mentioned book clubs and Bible study. So
Yeah.
within Growing Up Gorgeous, do you have different like subgroups?
Yeah. So within Grown Up Gorgeous, we have different ways of gathering. And so that's how we look at it. So, for example, we gather for Heart Talk on Saturday mornings
Ooh.
at 8 a.m. It's open to everyone. And once a month, we do a really specific subject. So for tomorrow, it's moms who are single. We're focusing on single motherhood. And so what ends up happening is folks who are kind of in that band and in that group they are able to band together and come and
Mm.
have a safe space where they can share. And so our Bible studies, our book clubs, they rotate and they change, and folks can find a place where it fits, it works for them, and it works for their season of life. Yeah, and we do
Okay.
master classes together where someone is coming in like as an experts on parenting, nutrition,
Oh,
all sorts of things where we can get practical help. And it's the intimacy that really makes those things really powerful because people feel comfortable sharing and we can really really talk to one another and get specific answers to our questions and as we grow my prayer is that we never lose that because that's just been a really beautiful way to really make sure people feel supported.
yeah. Yeah. So what are some of your goals for the future of Growing Up Gorgeous? What would you like to see it become?
I always think of Growing Up Gorgeous as a table, right? So even if you look at the logo, it's like a circle of people sitting together or gathering together. I like to think of it as a table. And in the future, I want that table to be full of people who have different pieces of their story and their testimony that they're bringing to the table. And I want Growing Up Gorgeous to be the place for Black moms to come to be able to know how they can get support, how they can get love, and to get all their questions answered. So when I think of us gathering together, I think like that's a table of experts. That's a table of seasoned moms who've been there. And I want to be able to provide that for other people. tangibly, I hope to have actual centers around the world that really create a hub for people to be able to come to and get loved on.
Oh, that's beautiful. I just love the visual, just picturing that, just spreading out throughout the world. That's remarkable.
Thank
Don't
you.
we live in a magical time
Yes.
that until those centers get built, that
Yeah.
we can meet virtually? Like it really is
Amazing.
magic that we're even talking right now and looking at each other's faces.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like the fact that we can make connections with anyone everywhere, it's so cool. It really is.
Wow, so much to think about here. I hope Christina has inspired you as much as she has me to look at what's holding us back from friendship and to start building our own communities. If you're interested in learning more about Christina or Growing Up Gorgeous, you can check out growingupgorgeous.com or follow Growing Up Gorgeous on Instagram. Thank you so much for listening to the How She Moms podcast and for being part of this community. There are so many other ways for you to connect and hopefully also contribute. I share tips and ideas regularly on Instagram and Facebook at How She Moms. You can find past episodes and other resources at howshemoms.com. And you can always just email me directly at whitney@howshemoms.com. Special thanks to my own wonderful mom, Susan Singley, for recording my theme music. She played this song all the time when I was growing up, and to me, it's the soundtrack of motherhood.